doing? Come on, you can do better than that. How are we doing? Guys, can we give a round of applause to Zach Williams and his band? How awesome are they? And also, Mr. Carter, who's put on, for the last 32 years, this awesome, not just movement, not just event, not just night, but an opportunity where so many lives have been changed. Can we give it up for Mr. Carter? I can tell there's a lot of your students up front yelling too. I hear you, they're biased, it's not a big deal. Oh, thank you, I love you too. I can't see you, but I love you. It's such an honor to be here, it really is. It's such an honor. Just landed a couple hours ago, but I'm so excited to be here. Even though guys, it kind of is a little bit of enemy territory. Like, I walk in and it's like Tennessee shirts, Tennessee hats. I guess I really know who I'm preaching to tonight, so I'll just leave it at that. It really is an honor to be here. In 2011, when I was playing for the Denver Broncos, we were playing a Thursday night football game against the New York Jets. That's actually back when the Jets were good. It's okay, I played for them and we were bad too. But we were playing this Thursday night football game, and leading into it, both teams knew that everything was on the line. We were both competing for a playoff spot, and this game was going to be huge. Honestly, this game was pretty much the season. If we lost, we weren't going to win the division. If they lost, they weren't going to have a chance at being in the wild card. So it was a huge game. The season was on the line, and they had one of the best defenses in the NFL. And that game was extremely physical, and we go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth the entire game. Finally, the game's coming down to the wire. We're running out of time. We're down, we need a touchdown to score. They punt it to us, they down it at our own 5-yard line. So we have 95 yards to go. We have to score a touchdown to win the game. We have to score a touchdown to keep our season alive, our playoff hopes alive. So not only do we have to drive 95 yards on one of the best defenses in the NFL, we have to do it to keep our season alive. Everything is on the line for this one drive. So we start the drive, and it's going well, but we're running out of time. There's less than a minute to go, and we're moving the ball, and we're fighting for every single yard, every single foot, every single inch, and we're getting first downs. We're just not doing it in enough time. So we're running out of time, we're running out of timeouts, and so I'm giving everything that I have, and I take a lot of pride in the fourth quarter being as good a shape. When other people get tired, I don't. When they flinch, I don't. And when the lights get too bright for other people, that is the time where you can rise and you can shine. It was always something I took so much pride in, except right now, I was so exhausted. I was literally so exhausted. Every time I would get up, I was fighting for a breath because I just played that game so hard, and it was a bunch of physical games in a row, and I was getting up, and I could barely say the play to our offensive line. And actually, on that drive, instead of doing a new play, I just ran up to him and I said, same play. And so it lined up, and it's 3rd and 4 on their 34-yard line. The game's on the line on this one play. The season's on the line on this one play. And I get ready to say set hut, but before I do it, I take one big breath to try to have a little energy for that play right before I say set hut. And right as I'm beginning to say set hut to call for the ball, one of the fans jumps out of the stands and starts streaking across the field. It's a true story. And so most of the time when something like that happens, like, you would laugh or make a joke to the running back, but for me it was just instantly, oh, thank you, Lord. NBC doesn't want this naked dude running around their television set, so they call a TV timeout, and the Jets go to their sidelines, we go to our sidelines. So it's a 3-minute TV timeout, so that's a lot of rest. So I had a while, I got water, we designed the play. We figured Rex Ryan was gonna blitz because in any big situation like that, he would always blitz. So we had a play ready. We go back on the field. I have a lot of energy now. I say set hut, run around the left edge for the game-winning touchdown, and we win. And a lot of people blame that fan jumping onto the field and running across the field, that he had too much alcohol, and he probably did. But guys, to be honest, I'm someone that's always believed in divine intervention. And it kind of helped that night. But to be honest, I do believe in divine intervention. I really do. I don't think that you're here to hear a band play or you're here to hear me speak. I don't think that you're here tonight to be part of a group. I think that you're here tonight because this could be a life-changing night for you, me, and a lot of us where we leave here as different people. Why? Not because we heard a talk or not because we heard music, but we encountered the God of this universe. That's what I hope and that's what I believe will happen here tonight. There was a senior in high school who his entire life did really poor in school. He did so poor in school that he decided enough is enough. There's no reason for me to go to college. There's no reason for me to keep trying. I'm not smart enough to make it. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. His parents were never supportive of him. They didn't believe in him. They always thought he was stupid. So he thought he was stupid. But he had one teacher that never gave up on him. His whole high school career said, I believe in you, I believe in you, I believe in you, you can do it. And he would say things like, no, I can't. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't get good enough grades to go to college. I won't do good enough on the SAT test to go to college. I just won't do it. So finally she begged him and begged him and begged him, would you please, for me, just please go take the SAT test. Please, just for me, just this one thing, this one time, please go take it. You never know how you'll do. Just please for me. So he was like, fine, I'll do it for you because you've been supportive the last 4 years, but I'm not going to do good. I mean, I'm failing in all my classes. I'm gonna fail at this SAT if you can fail. But he goes and he signs up, and a couple weeks later, he goes this Saturday morning, he takes the SAT test, he's back sulking at his house, and he gets a letter, and he's sitting down on his kitchen table, and he opens it, and he's kind of depressed, thinking how bad he's going to do on this SAT test, and he opens it up, and this is when the tests were out of 1,600, and he opens it up, and he reads, and he can't believe it, he got a 1480 on the SAT. So he goes and he shows it to his mom in the other room, and she instantly looks at him and says, how did you cheat? And so he's discouraged from that, but he's like, whatever. And so he runs up to school, and he goes and finds his teacher that had believed in him, that begged and begged for him to take this test. And he was like, look. And so she starts crying, he starts crying. They both start crying together. And she's like, I told you you could do it. I told you you could do it. I told you you could do it. And they're celebrating together. And he finally believes in himself. And so from that point on, he started doing better in all of his classes. He was doing all the extra credit. He was doing all of the homework. He actually advanced his grades enough where he got into a very prestigious college. In college, he realized that he wanted to be an entrepreneur, and so he believed in himself so much that when he finished college, he actually started a couple companies. Those companies did so well. 10 years after he got out of school, he won Entrepreneur of the Year award. He was killing it, absolutely killing it, because he took one test that made him believe in himself. But 10 years after he graduated from college, the town that he was from, they sent him a letter. This letter said, we're so sorry to inform you, but we made a mistake on your SAT test. We made a mistake. We're so sorry to inform you. You didn't actually score a 1480. You scored a 740. Your score was a 740. He read this, and at first he was kind of devastated, but he was like, it doesn't matter anyways, because I already believe in myself enough that It didn't matter what was on this paper. When he was a senior in high school, it mattered. That changed everything for him because for the first time in his life, he believed in himself. He believed that he was enough. He believed that he had significance. He believed that he could accomplish something. He believed he was smart, and he believed he had a purpose. For the first time in his life, just because a piece of paper lied to him. It lied to him and it said, look, you're enough. And so he believed what that piece of paper said. He believed what that piece of paper said, and it changed his life. It changed the trajectory of his life. It changed what he was going to do because there was a piece of paper that said, hey, look, you're smart. Look, you're valuable. Look, you mean something. One of my favorite verses is Ephesians 2:10. And it's one of my favorite verses because I think when you understand what this verse is trying to say, you understand what real worth really is. It says, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand for us to walk in. Let's break down the beginning of that. For we are his workmanship. That word workmanship comes from the Greek word poema, which could be the top 3 ways it's translated, is 1, workmanship, 2, poem, and 3, masterpiece. I just don't feel like the way that we speak, we don't really understand what workmanship really means. So I feel like the other 2 just are more applicable to the way that we speak. So when you substitute poem or masterpiece, it just makes more sense. And when you read it that way, for we are his masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared before for us to walk in, it changes it a little bit. When you put in, for we are his poem, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand for us to walk in. So wait a second, you break that down and it's, okay, before we were ever born, God wrote a poem about our lives that he considers a masterpiece in Christ Jesus. Wait a second. And not only does he have a masterpiece for us, he also says at the end, but he has good works for us. Wait, the God of this universe says he has good works for you? Wait, that must mean that you're not here on accident. It must mean that you have purpose. It must mean that there's a plan for your life. It must mean that there are significant things for you to do. Why? Because the God of this universe says that you're a masterpiece. I wrote a poem about your life. That gives you worth. And guess what? That piece of paper in Ephesians is more important than any piece of paper you get from any school. Yes, it's great to do good in school, but you can't get your identity from what a piece of paper tells you, or what the world tells you, or what social media will tell you, or what even your friends will tell you. And unfortunately, even sometimes what your parents will tell you, or your friends or your siblings. The only way we get our true identity is from the God of this universe. When he said, I created you in love, by love, and for love. You are one of one. There is no duplicates. It's just you. And guess what? I love you just the way you are. Actually, I love you so much that I consider you a masterpiece. And not only are you just a masterpiece to be here, but you're a masterpiece to actually do something. To actually do something. To matter. To have significance. We're actually here to matter. Not just to go through life, not just to do things, but to matter. That means that you have purpose in your life. You have significance in your life. There are things that God has for you to do that mean something. For you and for him and for eternity. You're not here to just get by. You're here to matter. You're here for a plan and a purpose. You're here to change others' lives and your own. You are here for a purpose. But you know what, to be honest, guys, so many times, I heard that. And I'd hear my dad preach that, and I'd hear other people preach that, but I would still feel like, dang, but what can I do? Like, I still feel inadequate. I don't know what I can do. Like, I don't know how I can do it. I would love to do something awesome. Like, I want to crush something, but I don't feel like I can. How can I do that? I'm not I don't have that many followers on social media. I don't have that many friends. How can I influence? What can I do? How can I do it? God, sometimes I just feel inadequate. I feel ill-prepared. I'm not equipped to do that. God, I want to do that, but I don't know how. What can I do? What can I do? I want to share one of my favorite passages with you guys, and it's John 6, and I read from verse 8. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a lad here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what are these for so many people?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." Now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down in number about 5,000. Jesus then took the loaves, and having given thanks, he distributed to those who were seated. Likewise also of the fish as much as they wanted. When they were filled, he said to his disciples, "Gather up the leftover fragments so that nothing will be lost." So they gathered them up and filled the 12 basket fragments with 5 barley loaves, which were left over by those who had eaten. Therefore, when the people saw the sign which he had performed, they said, "This is truly the prophet who is to come into the world." I'm sure a bunch of you have read that, heard that in church, and people talked about the miracle of Jesus feeding the 5,000. But honestly, a lot of scholars believe that it was probably over 10,000 because the Bible just says men there, but women and children. You got to imagine all these people are following Jesus. So let me kind of paint a little bit of a different picture than you've probably heard before. So there's this guy, Jesus, who had been going town to town and performing these miracles, and there's all these people following him. Some believers in him, some just enamored with him, some just probably curious, some just trying to figure it out. There's a mixture of people. Some are just like, man, I just want to go watch and see if Jesus is going to perform a miracle. Like, how crazy is this? This dude is literally performing miracles all the time. So there's all these people following Jesus. And then the Bible mentions this lad. I don't know how old a lad is. Some scholars guess, but let's just say middle school. I don't know, 10, 11, 12, 13. I don't know what you say a lad is, but let's just say he's middle school. So you can imagine this dude's in middle school, and he hears all these people. Jesus is walking near our town. Jesus is coming by, so, hey, Mom, Dad, I would love to go see Jesus. And you got to imagine probably he has family or cousins or friends or even his parents that might even be going to see Jesus. So he's probably like, "Hey, Mom, I'm going to go see Jesus today." And he's like, "Hey, do you think you can pack me like my own lunchbox?" And so his mom's probably like, "Well, you be careful, but sure, I'll pack you a lunchbox." And so they give him a couple pieces of bread and a couple pieces of fish, and he packs it all up, and he goes to follow this Jesus guy. And he's following this Jesus guy, and then he hears that Jesus and Jesus' disciples are asking for food. And you can imagine at first he's probably thinking like, no. First of all, this is my lunch. This is probably my dinner because I had to walk all the way to get here. It's not like I could stop at McDonald's or Arby's or whatever place, and I got to go all the way back. There's not another place. Like, you got to imagine where he's at. And so, no, this is my food. Like, one, it's my food, and two, like, how many people can Jesus even feed with this? Like, all these human thoughts at first that we would all have. It's my food, and there's not that many people who could help with it anyways. Tell you what, I feel like I've felt like that a lot. But then they ask, and you could probably feel like his conscience is going back and forth, and he's like, well, I guess if Jesus wants my food, like, I really want it, but you know what? I guess, like, here you go. You can take it. It's not that much. I don't have that much, but like, here you go. I'll give it to you if you really want it. Like, here you go. And you can probably just imagine the smile on Jesus' face, right? When he's like, oh, he thinks he just gave me a little. He has no idea that just because he gave me his all, watch, I'm going to give him his all, and it's going to be awesome. And so Jesus takes 5 pieces of bread and a couple pieces of fish, and he feeds all of the people there. So they're stuffed. 10, 15,000 people he feeds with just a little bit. And then just like Jesus always does, is there's not just enough so that everybody's stuffed, there's actually enough so that there's extra baskets just because Jesus can. And he's awesome like that. And there's these extra baskets of full food when everybody is like, how the heck did he just kept multiplying it. You know, when that lad got up that morning, I'm sure he probably thought, how sweet would it be if I saw a miracle today? I mean, that would be so cool, right? Like if I see Jesus do something awesome, like that would be incredible. I doubt he thought. I really do. I doubt he ever thought, today I'm going to be part of a miracle. And how many times is that true in our life? We think, man, I would love to see God do something. How many times do we think he's going to use me to do something? See, did Jesus performing that miracle, did it matter that the boy gave 5 pieces of bread and 2 fish? Would it have been more of a miracle if he gave 20 pieces and 10, 150? Was the amount of the gift why the miracle happened? I tell you what, a lot of times that's how I feel. It's like my multiplication. Well, how good? No, you can't break it that many times. Listen, we can't multiply the way God multiplies. Did it have to do with how much he gave? No, if the kid had 1 piece of bread and 1 fish, the miracle would have been the exact same. It wasn't how much he gave, but it was that he gave. And he gave everything. And you know what? That's true in our life. That's true in your life. That's wherever you're sitting right now, that is true in your life. It is not how much you have, but what you have and that you give it. Because we have all been gifted in unique areas. Unique areas. You might not even feel like some of your areas are a gift. But God made you that way for a time, for a purpose, for a reason, and for his plan. You're not an accident. You were here for a reason. And God said, hey, listen, the way you are, the way you look, you're a masterpiece. So you can let the world define you and give you your identity, or you can let God define you and give you your identity. And that'll be a struggle you'll deal with the rest of your life. But the more you listen to the world, the more you'll fall, the more you'll be disappointed. The more you trust God and his plan for your life, the more peace, the fulfillment, and the more ways I believe that he'll use you. Because guys, you might think I don't have a lot to give. But the miracles that God does aren't because of how much we give, but it's that we give. And when we do this, God will take what we give and he'll do his multiplication. That's not ours. That's not ours. And God is capable of doing whatever he wants. But I believe that he wants to use a life that's saying, you know what? This is my open hand. I'm going to give you what I have. And when you do that, watch what God will do with it. When I was at the University of Florida, my junior year, sure, you can cheer for that. When I was at the University of Florida, my junior year, it was the 3rd game of the season, and ironically enough, we were getting ready to play Tennessee. Guys, well, I don't know what you're cheering about. You already know the ending to the game. But it was about 15 minutes before the game started, and I was sitting in our training room, and I was getting a final tape and the final stretch, and I saw some of my teammates over in the corner, and they were putting eye blacks under their eyes, and a couple of them were putting like their mom's name, and a few of them were putting like their area code and cool stuff. But I was like thinking, you know what? I wonder if I put something that maybe could be encouraging or inspiring to someone. And I could really feel like God was kind of like just touching my heart a little bit. Dude, you need to do something. And at first I was like, no, it's kind of cheesy. And then I was like, I don't know. Well, what did I put? And I was like, I thought of God bless. And I was like, I don't know. And then I was laying there and I was kind of saying no in my head. And then God was like, no, you're going to say yes in your heart. And I was like, okay. And then I thought of Philippians 4:13. And I was like, oh, that's a great verse for a football player. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So I was like, perfect. So we were literally getting ready to run out of the tunnel, and I ran over there and I scribbled it really quick, and it looked awful. And so I was like, have the trainers run and do it again. And so I'm running out there and I'm putting it under my eyes as we're running out of the tunnel. And we go out there, and given we're playing Tennessee, so we were blessed to win. The next day, it was in a couple local newspapers, but it really wasn't a big deal. But as you know, SEC fans are kind of crazy, and so I keep wearing it under my eyes every week for the next 4 or 5 weeks, and so they just think it's like supporting the Gators, so all of a sudden they start selling it in like the Gator bookstore and the libraries on the side of the streets before games. So we're halfway through the season, and there literally be several thousand fans wearing Philippians 4:13 under their eyes for games. I really believe still that half of them didn't even know what it meant. I even had one person, his name was Phil, and he came up to me. He was like, "Did you wear that under your eyes for me?" What's wrong with you? Like, no. What's the 413 mean then, bro? Like, no. And so I kept wearing it under my eyes every single game, and we got to the SEC championship game, and now there was literally quite a few thousand that would wear this under their eyes and like support and stuff, and it was pretty awesome. And I remember standing in the tunnel getting ready to run out to play Alabama. Now I really know why I'm here. And we're getting ready to run out of the tunnel. And for me, in moments like this, I would always be so tunnel focused. And it just made things so much easier, and that's the way I like to do it. So literally, when I'm getting ready to run out of the tunnel, I would run out and I would go right to our 35-yard line on our sidelines. I would sprint 3 times down the sideline. I would get on a knee. I would say my final prayer, which ended up being Tebowing, but that's just something that I always did. I would jump 3 times. I would sprint back down. I would grab a football. I would have 3 throws. I would get a sheet with our first 15 plays. I would go through it. Any more final questions that I had, I would go through it, and I would be ready to go. It was always the next, the next, the next, the next, the next. And for me, it was how I handled pressure. It was how I handled obstacles. It was how I handled stress. I'm literally locked in, and it's the next thing. It would literally be the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. I'm going to do it with as much focus, intensity, and determination as I can. So I'd never stop and look back and like smell the roses or like, wow, this is really cool. Just not how my mind would work. But we're getting ready to run out of this tunnel, and for the first time, it was like one of those moments where it was like, dang, this is pretty cool. And I really felt like God was putting it on my heart to change the verse. And I was like, really, right now? But it was kind of one of those moments, it was like, wait a second, if we win, we're going to be playing in the national championship. And he was like, kind of putting on my heart, hey, that's a big stage. And I was like, all right. So we were blessed to win, and the next 6 weeks leading up to the national championship, I was contemplating, but really agonizing what verse I was going to go with. I knew I was going to change the verse. I just didn't know what I was going to go to. But God kept bringing to my heart and my head John 3:16. Because as a Christian, it's the essence of our Christianity. It's the essence of our hope. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life. So it gives us hope as Christians. So I decided, all right, that's the verse I'm going to go with. If there was one verse that you wanted to share with the world, that would be the verse. So I said, all right, that's the verse I'm going to go with. So 2 nights before the game, I go up to my parents' hotel room in Miami, Florida, tell them I'm switching the verse, and say, hey, Mom, Dad, I'm going to change the verse. And my mom, she's always supportive. She was like, that's great, honey. and my dad's like, well, have you told Coach Meyer? Because Coach Meyer says he's just likes his routines, but that dude is so superstitious, you can't change anything. Before I got there, they lost 1 game in orange pants, and we didn't wear orange pants the whole time I was in school. So if you just think he's the routines, no. So he's like, listen, you really need to talk to him before. So the next day we had our walkthrough, and we finished. And I said, hey, Coach Meyer, come over here for a second. He's like, how you feeling? Your legs good, arm good, you feeling good, game plan down? And I was like, yeah, I'm good with all that. But you know the verse I wear on my eyes? He's like, yeah. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. He was like, that's a great one. I was like, yeah, I like it too. But tomorrow night, I'm going to switch the verse to John 3:16. He's like, what? What are you talking about? You can't switch the verse. That verse, God is here. I was like, no, it didn't actually get us here. And I explained for a couple minutes why I was going with John 3:16, and he was supportive. And honestly, after that, I didn't even really think about it. Just the next night, went out there, and we were blessed to win the championship. And 2 days after that, I was in Ballyhoo Restaurant in Gainesville, Florida, eating a piece of grouper. And I was with my mom, my dad, one of my aunts, and Coach Meyer. And Coach Meyer gets a call, and he's always so intense. Like, bye. And he hangs up. I said, well, what was that all about? He said, that was Steve McLean, who's our PR guy at Florida. And I said, well, what did he have to say? And he kind of had this like puzzled look on his face. And he said, he looks up and he says, Timmy, he just told me that during the game, 94 million people Googled John 3:16. And I remember thinking, how the heck do 94 million people not know John 3:16? Are you kidding me? That's literally like the first thing you hear in church. It's like, welcome to church, John 3:16, have a seat. I mean, y'all know it's true. It's like, holy God, it's like everywhere posted, John 3:16. For God so loved the world, John 3:16. I mean, you see, like, how could 94 million people not know John 3:16? But I remember sitting there in that seat thinking, dang, what a big God we serve. What a big God we, sometimes it just feels like we just don't realize what a big God we serve. Like, he took something that I was just hoping someone had binoculars or maybe could see through my face mask to actually see these verses. And then it was on the cover of Sports Illustrated where pretty much all you can see is John 3:16. And just sitting there and you're like, wow, God, you are so much bigger than I thought. You're just like, I just was like, maybe I can do something to help someone. Maybe I can just like, you know, put my arm around someone or pray with someone or just reach out and help someone. And God's like, no. When you do that, watch what I go. You take a step, I run miles. I was just so in shock of what God did, how big our God is that we serve. That game was January 8th, 2009. Exactly 3 years later from that night, 3 years exactly to the night I wore John 3:16 under my eyes, we just happened to be playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first round of the playoffs. I didn't think of John 3:16 one time. So I can't take any credit for it. I just knew we were facing the best defense in the NFL, and we were blessed to win this crazy game in overtime. And after this game, we were all celebrating like crazy in the locker room, and it was amazing, and it was a surreal moment. We're just so excited. And then I showered and I changed, and I was getting ready to go do my press conference. I love talking to the media. That's a joke. And I'm in this hallway, and there's these big curtains where I have to walk through to walk into the press conference, and it's packed with just not a huge media. So many media were there, and for the upset, and it was crazy, all this media. And to the right was our field, and all the fans were still there cheering and chanting. And then behind me was all my teammates still in the locker room, and I'm getting ready to walk through these curtains to walk into this press conference. And I thought it was an amazing night because we upset one of the best teams in the NFL. I thought that's why the night was amazing. And I'm getting ready to walk through those curtains, and right before I open them, Patrick, our PR guy, he grabs me and he says, Timmy, did you realize what happened? And I was like, yeah, we just beat the Steelers. We're going to play the Patriots. He's like, no, Timmy, you don't realize what happened. And I could tell that Patrick was being serious. And I said, Patrick, what's up? He said, Timmy, it's exactly 3 years from the night that you wore John 3:16 under your eyes. And I thought, man, that's really cool. That's awesome. That's awesome. He said, no, you don't realize. Timmy, during the game, you threw for 316 yards. Your yards per completion were 31.6. Your yards per rush were 3.16. The time of possession was 31.06. And the ratings for the night were 31.6. And during the game, 90 million people Googled John 3:16, and it went so viral on social media that Twitter actually stopped. And I was like, can it actually do that? And I remember standing in that hallway right before I opened those curtains. And at first I was kind of like ashamed, because my whole focus that night was just the game. And then Patrick told me what happened. And I remember at first thinking kind of ashamed. And I was like, dang, I thought tonight was about a game. I thought it was about a game. I thought it was about winning or losing. And God's like, no. It's always more than a game. It's never just a game. It's never just a game. You remember that thing that you trusted me with 3.5 years ago when you were like, maybe you'll help someone? And then when I switched it a few months later, 3 years ago to this night, remember what I did? You thought that I was done, didn't you? You thought that it was cool, but it was done. It was done. You thought that the loaves and the fish, you thought I was done breaking it, didn't you? You thought I was done. You didn't even remember, but I did. And this whole time, I was planning it. Why? I think because I care about a game? No, I care about people. I love people. That's why I'm here. I'm here for people. And I just remember standing in this hallway thinking, gosh, I'm so little and he's just so small. I'm so little and he's just so big. I'm so small and he's just so great. Like, wow, it's crazy when we give our little bits to him and we watch what he does. Because it wasn't just 2,000 years ago when our God performed miracles. It's still to this day. It's still in your life. It's still right now. It's still in your future. Listen, guys, it doesn't mean that everything you do, you're going to see how God is working. Doesn't mean in every time you try to do what's right, you're going to see God do something crazy, because we can't always see what he's doing, but we got to believe that he's always doing something, because he is, and he will, and he loves you so much. And he has a great, amazing masterpiece for your life. And he has good things in store for you to do in your future. Good things, because you matter, because you have significance, and because he chose you, and because he loves you. A couple years ago, I was in death row, one of the death rows in Florida, and it's one of my favorite things to do, because I believe that God's form of agape love to us is best described as to choose the best interest of another person and act on their behalf. And that's what God did for us, and I think that's what we're called to do for other people, is to choose their best interest and act on their behalf. And that's what I try to do in prisons with inmates, because they will literally never get out their entire life. And most of the world has locked them up and thrown away the key. And so I try to go and share and love them and care for them and share Jesus with them. And this day was one of those just really tough days. Me and one of my brothers and a friend were there, and there were 342 cells that were full that day in death row. And we went cell to cell to cell to cell to every single one of them, which took us around 8 or 9 hours-ish. And we were there all day, and it was already into the evening when we finished. And we finished in the back right corner of death row. It's a quarter mile from where we entered. It's nighttime and all the lights are off, and we're walking back down this quarter of a mile where it's dark, but we're walking towards a light. And it's kind of an amazing picture. And we're kind of sad. It's a heavy day. Not a lot of people want to hear. Not a lot of people want to listen. More want to argue. A lot of want to share what they've done, their crimes, how they've hurt people. So it's a heavy day. It's a hard day. And we're walking back down, and no one's really saying anything. And we get about 10 feet from the light, where then there are doors, and then there are chains, and then there are doors, and then there's our parking lot with the car. And right before we take a left right into the light, my buddy goes to the warden, "Hey, warden, what's down that hallway?" And it's the only hallway we hadn't been down the entire day. And the warden said, "Guys, that's suicide watch." My buddy said, "Are there any inmates in suicide watch?" The warden said, "Yeah, we have 4 right now." He said, "You think there's any way that we could see him?" The warden said, "Sure, I'll let you see him." So then they both look at me, and I was like, "Yeah, we'll see him. Guilt trip me more." So then we walk into suicide watch. We go up to door number 1. It doesn't go very well. We go up to door number 2, and it doesn't go very well. We get ready to walk up to door number 3, and right before we do, warden grabs me by my forearm, and he says, "Hey, hold on just a second." He said, "I think I should tell you about this guy. Obviously, he's in here for murder, but a couple of days ago, he also killed another one of our inmates. And he will do anything possible to kill himself. He has totally lost all hope. He would do anything to kill himself." So warden walks in front of me and walks up to the steel cage. It's literally a steel cage with a tiny bit of plexiglass that you can barely see in and out because it's really thick plexiglass. And on the inside, it's padded walls, padded floors, padded ceiling. And there's this man standing in the back where you can barely see in, but he's chained from his feet all the way up. Literally, his ankles are chained, his waist is chained, his arms are chained, his hands are chained, and the only thing he can move are his fingers like this and take tiny steps just so he won't kill himself. And so warden walks and he taps on the plexiglass and he said, "Hey, young man, you got a special visitor I think you might want to come see." So I can hear this man start taking these tiny steps that are so loud because of the chains, and it takes him a few minutes to make it to the front of the cell, and he finally gets there, and I can kind of see his silhouette, but I can't see him, and so I kind of press my face to the plexiglass so I could see in, and he can't really see out, so he presses his face to the plexiglass, and finally, when we're both pressed against the glass, we meet eyes to eyes, nose to nose. And right when he sees me and he locks eyes to me, he says, "You're a Christian." I said, "Yes, sir, I am." I said, "Do you know why we're here?" He said, "Nah." I said, "We're here to tell you that God loves you." And instantly, this man falls to the ground and begins weeping uncontrollably. About 5 minutes or so, and then it takes him another 3-4 minutes to just stand up in all of his chains, and finally he stands up, and with tears just flowing down his face profusely, he presses his face back to the plexiglass and he taps it just like this, and he says, you might not believe me, but 5 minutes ago, right before you walked up, I prayed for the first time in a long time, and I told God, I said, "God, you ain't ever been there for me. In my entire life, I have been abused, I have been neglected. The people that were supposed to love me betrayed me. The people that were supposed to have my back left. If you are real, if you are out there, you will show up and you will show me that you're real, because if you don't, I will do anything to keep myself." Spiritual warfare right there. I will do anything to kill myself. And that's why when I saw you, I started crying, because that was God answering my prayer. Can you hear me now? That was God answering my prayer, that he's real and that he loves me. And for the next 15 minutes, I got to share with this young man who's younger than I am, that there's a God that loves him so much. Even through everything that he's done, he still loves him. And you know what? He loves him so much that he sent his son down to this earth But Jesus didn't just come to this earth to hang out or do some cool things or some good things. He didn't. It's so much more than that. Jesus came on a rescue mission. And he lived a life that we couldn't live. That we couldn't live because we're not good enough. But he chose to die a death that we deserve to die. He chose to do that. And when Jesus was on the cross, everything that I have done wrong was on that cross, on him. Everything that you have done wrong was on that cross, on him. And yeah, Jesus died on that cross. And he was buried. But 3 days later, death couldn't hold him, and he rose from the dead. And because he has the power to defeat death, he has the power to give you eternal life. And the best part is, it's free. It's a free gift, meaning you don't have to pay for it. You do not have to work for it. You can just simply accept Jesus' gift. Accept what he did on the cross. That accounted for you and accounted for me. And the way we accept Jesus' gift is by putting our faith in him. Accepting him into our heart. See, Jesus did all the work so we don't have to. You see, he loved us that much. He loved us that much. He loves you that much. That if you were the only person on this earth, Jesus would have died just for you. That's how much he loves you. That's how much he loves you. If you were the only person. And I got to share this with that young man in prison. And he would say things like, even me, after what I've done, he still loves me that much. Yes, he still loves you that much. Even you. He still loves you that much. And I got to pray with this young man. I got to pray with him, and he asked Jesus to come into his heart and into his life. And I believe instantly he went from darkness to light. Eternity was sealed. He was adopted into the family of God, and he has a home in heaven. And I'm going to be able to hang with him one day. And you know what? When I was a boy, I went to church all the time. My parents were missionaries. We were one of those, the first service, the last service, Wednesday night service, we were at all the services. And you want to go? You want to accept? Do you want to go? No, I'm good. No, I'm good. No, I'm good. So finally one night I was laying in my bed and I couldn't sleep, and I knew that I had never accepted Jesus into my heart and into my life. And I couldn't sleep, so I got up super early that morning and I ran to my mom. I said, Mom, I got to ask Jesus to come into my heart. And we got down right there and we knelt by our couch. And I asked Jesus to come into my heart. And instantly at that moment, I believed that I went from darkness to light. I was adopted into the family of God. And I have a home in heaven. And I'm going to live forever there one day.